Hello, this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a gorgeous day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. So now the big outcry is over Joe Biden having a terrible debate performance. And now everybody's hollering about Kamala, replace him, Kamala. But replacing Joe Biden would be very, very hard. And I'm going to tell you why. And this is from ABC News. Democrats are talking about replacing Joe Biden. That wouldn't be so easy. Democratic Party rules make it almost impossible to replace nominees without their consent, let alone smoothly substitute in someone else. So trying to get rid of Joe Biden is not going to be nearly as easy as just having a conversation. The Democratic leaders are going to have a conversation, and the Senate leaders are going to have a discussion, and the House of Representatives leaders are going to have a discussion, and voila, Biden is gone. No, it's not going to be that easy. President Joe Biden's performance in the first debate Thursday has sparked a new round of criticism from Democrats, as well as public and private musings about whether he should remain at the top of the ticket. In the modern era, a national party has never tried to adversarially replace its nominee, in part because they know it would most likely fail. The issue came before both parties in 2016, but neither took action. Still, the Democratic National Committee's charter does make some provisions in case the party's nominee is incapacitated or opts to step aside. And an anti-Biden coup at the convention is theoretically possible, if highly unlikely. So how would it work? Now, before I go on with this, let me just say, the best way for the Democrats to get Kamala in or some other nominee is for Joe Biden to voluntarily give up his place. He already has the delegates. He's already been elected and shown that he can defeat Donald Trump. Now, Kamala Harris has not won a single delegate, and now people want him to turn over his delegates to her. He's an old white man in the seat of power who spent 40 years trying to be president. So now, an old white man in the seat of power with an old white woman by his side telling him not to do it, not to give up his power. Now, you make the call. Now back to the article. What happens if Biden drops out before the Democratic convention? The only plausible scenario for Democrats to get a new nominee would be for Biden to decide to withdraw, which he has sworn off repeatedly during other bumpy stretches of his campaign. He could do so while serving out the rest of his term in the White House, as Lyndon Johnson did in 1968. If Biden were to drop out before he is scheduled to be formally nominated in August, it would create a free-for-all among Democrats because there's no mechanism for him or anyone else to anoint a chosen successor. And what this means is that if he voluntarily stepped aside, Kamala wouldn't automatically be the nominee. It takes a majority of roughly 4,000 pledged delegates to win the party's nomination. Biden's won 3,900 of them. Under recent reforms, the party's more than 700 superdelegates, Democratic lawmakers, and dignitaries are allowed to vote only if no one wins a majority of pledged delegates on the first ballot. So their votes could be crucial in a contested convention. Because Biden's opponents all won effectively no delegates throughout the nomination process, there'd be a virtual clean slate heading into the convention, and the decision would most likely come down to the convention delegates who were initially pledged to Biden. Biden would have some influence over his pledged delegates, but ultimately they could vote as they please. So candidates would most likely campaign aggressively to win over each individual delegate. And all this would do would be to create so much chaos and animosity that the Democrats would definitely lose in the fall. Democrats decided to plan a virtual nomination for Biden after Ohio Republicans balked at passing pro forma legislation that would allow ballot to be on the ballot even though the convention falls after a state deadline. But while Republicans passed a law to shift the deadline, Democrats decided to move forward with a virtual nomination nonetheless. So, could Democrats replace Biden against his will? There's no evidence the party would entertain a change without Biden's consent. But even if it did, there's no mechanism for it to replace a candidate before the convention, and certainly no way for it to anoint a chosen successor. So this goes right back to Kamala. They can't just put her in place because Biden stepped aside. There still has to be a process. If large swaths of the Democratic Party lost faith in Biden, delegates to the National Convention could theoretically defect en masse. Of course, they were chosen to be delegates because of their loyalty to Biden and have pledged to support him at the convention. But unlike many Republican delegates, Democratic delegates aren't technically bound to their candidate. DNC rules allow delegates to, all in good conscience, reflect the sentiments of those who elected them, providing some wiggle room. So again, all you're doing is gearing up for a big party fight, which won't benefit anybody. The party's charter does not include provisions to replace the nominee in the event of a vacancy. The measure is intended to be used in case of death, resignation, or incapacitation, not to replace someone who has no desire to step down. So see, it still comes back to Joe Biden voluntarily stepping down. Current DNC chair Jamie Harrison is a longtime Biden ally who serves essentially at the pleasure of the president. And the National Party has certainly given no indication it's anything but fully behind the re-election of Joe Biden. I believe that some of the people that are talking in the media, and I'm talking about the mainstream media, and some of these politicians really don't know how this works. They can't do anything really unless Joe Biden decides to step down. And so far, he says he's not going to do it. What happens if Biden withdraws after the convention? To fill a vacancy on the national ticket, the chair can call a special meeting of the full Democratic National Committee, which includes about 500 members. On paper, at least, all it takes is a majority vote of those present to pick new presidential and vice presidential nominees. But that process would most likely be anything but smooth and be filled with behind-the-scenes jockeying and public pressure campaigns. A mess. Would Kamala Harris replace Biden? If Biden were to relinquish the presidency, Vice President Kamala Harris would automatically become president, but not the Democratic Party's nominee, nor would she necessarily be the nominee if Biden withdrew from his re-election bid while he remained in the White House. She might be politically favored, but party rules give the vice president no major mechanical benefit over other candidates. Biden's delegates wouldn't automatically transfer to Harris, and the convention holds separate votes on nominees for president and vice president. So she would still need to win a majority of delegates at the convention. So the path would not be smooth for her. And speaking honestly, I think it would all be for nothing, because if Hillary Clinton couldn't beat Donald Trump, what makes anybody think that Kamala Harris would. And that is why you quietly see these white Democratic men covering for Joe Biden. They want him to stay in the office as long as he can, and then they want to nominate the next president and vice president themselves. So it's still a man's world. No woman has been the president of the United States of America in my lifetime or from what I've read in the past. They've tried, but nobody has won. Hillary Clinton came closer, and she actually won delegates, and she was actually the party's nominee, and she did it the right way. She didn't get in through the back door because somebody, showed weakness, and she couldn't beat Donald Trump. So I don't know what all of this talk is about, because if you're going to lose, you might as well lose with the person who at least got the job through hard work. Now, as far as most black people are concerned, I don't know about most black people, but I know that a lot of black people are saying they're not going to vote anyway, and some saying they're going to vote for Trump anyway. There are those that say they're going to stick with Biden, and some say they're going to vote for the couch. So all of this is very intriguing for me, especially seeing how black people are responding to all of this. But I just think it's very interesting, and we shall see how it plays out. I don't believe that Joe Biden is going to step aside, and I don't believe they're going to push him out. I don't think they're going to do it. So anyway, y'all, that's what I think, but let me know what you think. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.